What do you think is the most terrifying sound in the world? For me, it's the sound of footsteps crunching on gravel. It sends shivers down my spine every single time. And if you're hearing those footsteps at 3 a.m. in the morning outside your window, then you probably have a primal fear of being hunted. That fear is what keeps you alive. But there are some men out there that feed off of that fear. They thrive on it. I know this because I am one of them. My name is Anonymous. I'm a 34-year-old male, and this is my story. It all started when I was a kid. I would hear these strange sounds at night, and I couldn't pinpoint where they were coming from. It sounded like hail for about 15 minutes, followed by heavy footsteps near my bed. I was always alone in my room. My parents had passed away in a car accident when I was just a baby, so I never had any siblings. I remember crying out for help, but no one ever came. I don't blame them. No one could hear me screaming over the sound of hail. But as the footsteps got closer and closer, I felt something else. An evil presence growing stronger with each step. And then suddenly, just as quickly as it began, it would stop. Those nightmares continued for years and years, following me into adulthood. I joined the army, hoping that would get rid of those nightmares. It didn't. I met a lot of crazy people in the army, but none were as crazy as the one I feared in my nightmares. That's when I learned the truth about that sound. It wasn't a nightmare. It was my new reality, and I hated it. The question was, how do I stop it? I tried everything. Earplugs, white noise machines, even ear trumpets. Nothing worked. Those footsteps were relentless, echoing in my mind long after I heard them. I spent so much time trying to escape that sound that I ended up neglecting my real life. I had no friends or family. I was completely alone. That's when I decided enough was enough. I refused to let some imaginary stalker ruin my life. So I did something crazy. I bought every single sound recording device I could find. I recorded everything: birds, crickets, even cars. Then I started playing them on repeat until I couldn't hear anything else. It took months, but eventually the world was silent. And now I can finally tell my story without the constant background noise. I walked through life wearing headphones, listening to my recordings, blocking out the world. Some people stared at me like I was crazy, and maybe I was, but I didn't care. All I cared about was drowning out the silence. Then one day, while walking through the forest, I heard it again, the sound of footsteps on gravel. I pulled out my headphones and listened intently. The footsteps were getting closer. I could feel the vibrations in the ground beneath my feet. Adrenaline pumped through my veins as I broke into a run. My heart pounded in my chest, echoing the rhythm of the approaching footsteps. I stumbled over tree roots and fallen branches, but I didn't care. I just needed to get away. As I ran, I could hear the footsteps getting louder, the heavy thud of each step sending shivers down my spine. I burst out of the trees and onto a dirt road. The sound of footsteps stopped abruptly. Had I managed to escape? I turned slowly, my eyes scanning the trees behind me, but I saw nothing. Relief washed over me. Maybe it was just my imagination. Maybe the sound had finally stopped following me. But as I turned to leave, I heard it again, a soft whisper in my ear. "Run," it said. And as I turned back to look, I saw him standing there. A tall, thin man with long, scraggly hair and eyes that glowed red in the darkness. He was smiling, and it was the most terrifying smile I had ever seen. His smile was filled with sharp, pointed teeth that seemed to gleam like daggers in the moonlight. And then he opened his mouth and let out a deafening roar. And that's when I knew I wasn't safe. Not ever. Because the man that stood before me was the embodiment of my greatest fear, the man that had haunted my nightmares for years. And now he was real. And as he took a step towards me, I knew I had to do something. I couldn't just stand there and let him hurt me. I ran as fast as I could, the sound of his heavy footsteps pounding on the ground behind me. I could feel his presence closing in on me, his hot breath on my neck, his fingers like claws at my shoulder. But I kept running. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs screamed for mercy. But no matter how far I ran, he was always there, just beyond my sight, always taunting me with his heavy footsteps and his deafening roars. and to this day, I still run. I run from the man that haunts my nightmares, the man whose footsteps echo in my ears, the man who whispers my name in the darkness. I run, but I know I can never escape. Because the truth is, we're all hunted. And some men, well, they just make the hunt a little more fun.